The list of government-imposed vaccine mandates is growing by the day, with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health announcing this morning that all long-term care staff in facilities like nursing homes and assisted living centers will need to be fully vaccinated by mid-October. Just yesterday, New York became the first city to announce it will require vaccines for people in restaurants as well as indoor fitness and entertainment facilities. That's on top of the vaccine and mask requirements for city employees that Mayor Bill de Blasio announced last week. As for Boston, while Acting Mayor Kim Janey says she's open to mandates for city employees, when it comes to the rest of the city, she told reporters, including WCVB, that she'd rather convince people to get the vaccine than force them to.
There's a long history in this country of people needing to show their papers during slavery, post-slavery, as recent as, what an immigrant population has to go through here. We heard Trump with the birth certificate nonsense. Here, we want to make sure that we are not doing anything that would further create a barrier for residents of Boston or disproportionately impact BIPOC communities.
Slavery? City Councilor Andrea Campbell, who's running against Janey in this fall's mayoral election, was quick to push back on that, calling the comments dangerous and saying, quote, showing proof of vaccination is not slavery or birtherism. There's already too much misinformation directed at our residents about this pandemic, particularly black and brown residents. It's incumbent upon us as leaders, particularly of those of us who are black, not to give these conspiracy theories any more oxygen. But back to government workers. Joe Biden has said yes to a mandate. To date, Charlie Baker is not yet there. Here he was on Boston Public Radio just a few weeks back. So are you saying you'll consider some mandates once there's full licensure as compared to emergency use authorization?
I would rather talk about it at that point. I think it's a hard sell.
So for now, it's every city, town, department, and business for itself. And I'm joined now by two of the many leaders facing that challenge. State Treasurer Deb Goldberg, who's requiring everyone in her department to either get vaccinated or undergo weekly testing. And Somerville Mayor Joe Curtatone, who's considering similar vaccine and testing requirements for city and school staff. Treasurer, Mayor, it's good to see you both. Thanks for being here.
Good to see you too.
Treasurer Goldberg, why'd you make that decision?
Well, I think you need to step back and actually look at what I did in June. I was asked if people could stop wearing masks if they were vaccinated. And I said, no, I know that the Delta variant is going to be here very, very soon. And I want everyone to feel safe when they're in our offices. So I want people to be wearing masks at all times, except if they're in a private office or sitting at their desk in a cubicle. And by the way, that ended up proving itself to be the right thing to do because we did have people exposed to the Delta variant, and by them having worn masks, they did not infect their coworkers. So then as things have escalated, I felt it imperative, particularly since the CDC guidelines have not been implemented here fully throughout Massachusetts, that the number one thing we heard from employees about coming back to work was the fear of somehow catching COVID, and a lot of them bringing it home to their children and being part of super spreading through schools. So I felt that this was the right thing to do. We are not mandating a vaccine, but we need vaccine verification and or testing. And I think that keeps us in a safe workplace, and it makes people feel more confident. We work for the people of Massachusetts. We have to get our jobs done. And so it's not optional. It's a commitment. And so that's why this was so important.
Mayor Curtatone, you're contemplating similar things. You've pretty much taken the lead above virtually every other city and town on pandemic protocols. Why aren't you just doing it? Why are you thinking about it?
Well, we are thinking about analyzing every tool at our disposal. And the good thing is we have many more tools, i.e. the vaccine, and we know the effectiveness of masks and the importance of utilizing testing. And we know a lot more knowledge about the pandemic than we did a year ago. So we're in a better place. However, we're right now not only considering, we've informed the public what we're thinking. We've always tried to take a deliberate, transparent, ethical approach to how we communicate with the public when we're telling them, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, here's what we're thinking about doing and why. We are absolutely concerned as we should all be at the speed and prevalence of the Delta variant. More than 93% of all new infections are a result of the Delta variant.
Yeah.
Like other communities, we have vulnerable people with compromised immune systems that are at risk. This is about protecting our most vulnerable. And right now, you have to wear a mask in city buildings or your employer or visitor. You are wearing masks if you are participating in a certain program. And I fully expect all teachers, staff, and students to be masked in our schools in the fall, but we are contemplating mandatory vaccines. We are going to back it up with information, diligence, and the consultation of experts with the public. This is about really protecting our most vulnerable, and we can either control COVID, Jim, or can continue to control us. And we have the tools to control it more right now.
How do you find Mayor Curtatone, your colleague, one city over, is that comment about slavery and birtherism helpful to the cause here?
Well, listen, well, I do believe, I don't think anyone would disagree, we need to be thoughtful about any strategy we implement and how it impacts the most vulnerable in our community, i.e. Black, brown people, immigrants, our seniors, in particular those folks, because they've all gotten sick at higher rates than people like myself or you or the treasurer and died at higher rates. We have the third leading death rate in the nation in Massachusetts.
Yeah, but how about the reference to, I agree, how about the reference to slavery and birtherism?
Yeah. And so if I can finish, I think, however, we have to focus on the science to decide which mitigation tactics will work best. Back it up with that data and stay away from language that I'd submit polarizes this issue any more than it already is. And really, at the end of the day, our goal should be our collective goals. Let's get the shots in the arms as many people as possible and protect our most vulnerable. And anything that takes away from that message, and that type of language is concerning because it can take away from that message. It's not helpful.
Briefly, Treasurer, what did you think of Mayor Janey's comments?
Well, I have to agree with Mayor Curtatone. I believe that there's so many other issues around why people are not getting vaccinated. And, you know, I've heard firsthand fears and stories that are going around about what the vaccine can do to you and all of that. So I'm not sure that it was terribly helpful in breaking through the barriers of convincing people to become vaccinated. And the reality is we won't have herd immunity until a lot more people are vaccinated.
You know, Treasurer Goldberg, I'm short on time, but staying with you just for a second, how did the people of Massachusetts not get a mixed message? When they deal with the Treasury or the Auditor's Office or come the fall, the Attorney General's Office, they will encounter a public-facing vaccinated employee. If they go to another government office, they won't. I mean, isn't that sending exactly the kind of mixed messaging? Shouldn't the whole state be doing the same thing with its workers rather than?
I implore my other constitutional officers and other elected officials to follow the lead that we established. And by the way, the Boston City Council stated last week, I think that's the way to go. Masks work, as do vaccines. That's what we need to do if we're going to beat COVID. And as the person who focuses entirely on the fiscal strength of this state, if we want to keep this economy going and building back even better, we've got to get this done.
Joe, Mayor Curtatone, you only have 30 seconds left. Can you give me one good argument you've heard against, at least during this Delta surge, against mandating public-facing public employees?
I haven't heard one good argument, certainly not one backed up by data, but I want to add on to what the Treasurer said in her answer to you and say this. You've heard me say before, we have no plan. We haven't had a plan since the beginning of the Commonwealth. 351 cities and towns, more than 300 school districts having to figure out on their own. And COVID will find a way like water. So the more people want vaccinated, the more we're on our way to do it, the more we don't have that unified approach, even at a regional level, it will find a way and people will die. We have the third highest COVID death rate in the nation. Let's not forsake that loss of souls and people in our community. Let's all do what we can and utilize the greater amount of tools and resources we have now to not just contain the spread, but beat it down for good.
Joe Curtatone, Deb Goldberg, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Jim.